Welcome to Trinidad Bhojpuri with me, Karen Das. Coming up, I'm going to connect with Dr. Visham Bhimull of Caribbean Hindustani. So, you know by now on my Facebook page there is a Trinidad Bhojpuri word of the day as well as a Trinidad Bhojpuri phrase, which comes up on a Wednesday and the words on the other days of the week. I also share this on my radio show on 103.1. Feedback is just so good. And that is wonderful. Thank you so much for reaching out to the show and to this particular feature. And what I enjoy most is the comment section and the interaction that takes place in the comment section. It means then that we are growing. It also means that we are more exposed to words and how these words are being used, not just here in Trinidad, right? So once again, thank you so much. And you can continue to just keep me informed. And if you think that there's a word that should be used or can be used, you can always inbox me. I'm always happy to have a chat with you. Now, we're going to do a week in review for Trinidad Bhojpuri because while it's important that we see the spelling of the word, it is also significant to know how the word sounds. So the pronunciation is extremely important. That way, we use the words properly. And if we happen to hear it in a conversation, at least we know what's happening. All right. So this is where Dr. Bhimull comes in.
Sitaram, well, good. It's evening now. I do not show what show individual go on. Good day to all your viewers and listeners.
Good day. That's right. So I thought it would be really neat to connect with Dr. Bhimull to do a week in review. So we're going to go through the words that we used this past week, inclusive of the phrase, because I think it's also important for us to hear the pronunciation of those words. So let's start with Monday's words, Dr. Bhimull. So we had samchawe, and some folks got it mixed up with samche. They thought pretty much samchawe, it's the same thing, but technically it's not. So why don't you break it down for us?
Samjay means to understand, and when you add that way to more of the verb, it becomes samjhawe, to cause to understand or to explain. So
Okay.
yes, it is related, but it's a different form of the same verb.
All right. So samchawe was our word last Monday. We followed up on Tuesday with bunbunawe, which I thought was just such a sweet word. I just went with how it sounded, and it sounded like a sweet word. But there's so much more to this particular word. So bunbunawe. So that was Tuesday's word. How about you break down the meaning for us?
Right. So the original was aspirated, right? So it's bunbunawe originally, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you tend to have in Trinidad Bhojpuri speakers not making the aspirants because it's not
Oh,
part of the English language. So that a lot of these words, even though the original was aspirated, they tend to be unaspirated, or a great deal of them, significant amount now becomes unaspirated. Yeah, but Bunbunai, I remember Karkarai, Karkarai, Karkarai. That's a song by Rasika Dinial, Sister Himlata Dindia. That was we should explore some words from that. That's some nice typical Bhojpuri words in those. But bunbunai, I remember. So
uh-huh.
it means to make noise, and people we learn onomatopoeias in school. Is one onomatopoeia. So bun bun, an Indian sounds like making noise. Bun bun, right?
Bun bun. Okay, got it.
Right. So and the awe again to cause the bun bun. So to
Right,
cause
to
the
make
make
noise.
the noise boon boon. Now remember, different cultures have ascribe different sounds to the same thing. Like achum
Mm-hmm.
in French is achu in English. Is the next
Mm-hmm.
example. So the Indian here, boon boon really means to mumble or to make noise or to hum. So in that context, it means to in a lot of context it means to grumble or to rumble or to mumble.
All right. So on Wednesday, we had the Bhojpuri phrase, Naina Milaike.
Right. And well, there's one popular remake of the Amir Khusru songs. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah, chapatilak,
Yes.
sabachin musene nami like. When I had given you this word, so the milaike actually talks about that. It speaks of an old form of Hindi again. Um, and you wouldn't hear it in modern day Hindi. It becomes milake. I think the version of the song you played had milake in it, milake. But in all forms of Hindi, Bhojpuri included, or all forms of Hindustani, you hear milaike, which is the same thing like samjhawe, right? It's an old form. So milaike now is in the context of cause to meet, the cause to meet, right?
Mhm.
Or to glance. So Naina is a form for eyes. It's kind of poetic words. You wouldn't really hear that in everyday conversation. Um, Naina, Nayan, it occurs in Bhojpuri songs and Hindi poetry. And Milaike is for the eyes to meet. Um, or the cast a gaze one eye to the next. Right?
Right.
Milake, Adenike is on, so it's on meeting of the eyes. Milana is to meet. So it's two eyes meeting really.
Okay, so making eye contact.
Yeah.
Making eye contact, right. All right. And on Thursday, we did BJ or Bhige. Is that the correct
Right.
pronunciation?
Yeah. And what comes to mind? So it's two forms of the word, eh? Like
Mhm.
there are always variants, especially in languages like Trinidad Bhojpuri. So that sometimes you would hear bhasa and sometimes you would hear bakha, right?
Mhm.
Which is bhasha in Hindi, which means language, right? So this is another example. The verb in general just means to become drenched, become soaked, and there are two forms. So bhinge or bhige and bhinje, right? Um, and that goes back to sends my mind back to the song Rang Barise, Bhige Chuna Revali Rang Barise. So the
Mhm.
ones who are clothed in chun they become soaked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so Bhinje or Bhige.
yeah. Both mean the same thing. It's just variants of one verb.
All right. And on Friday, we had Partan.
Yeah, Parthan, and that's another one where you wouldn't hear Parthan, you hear
Yes,
Parthan.
yes.
Um, Especially in Trinidad Bhojpuri because we lose the aspirants. The original was Ta, right? So Parthan or Parthan, which well, yeah, we explored that. That was the dry flour, extra flour you had add to the chowki, so that when you bail the roti, it wouldn't stick.
Right. Um, and another thing that I noticed with Partan is that some people they don't pronounce it just as Partan. They say Partan or Partan, but it's really Partan.
Right, there's like a man named Ramjatan. He named Ramjatan, but the original voice was Ramjatan. So
Ramjatan,
that
Ramjatan, yes.
Ramjatan, right? Ramcharan
It's
is really Ramcharan,
Ramcharan. Yes.
Ramcharan. So though that's just examples of anglicization of the original words.
Uh-huh. Okay. So these are really good words. I think that some folks like the punpunawe was actually quite fun. I think that was my favorite word this past week. Lots of
Mhm.
folks got that one. Lots of folks got the purtan. Like I mentioned, the samjhe and the samjhawe. So they just use to understand on Monday, but it's really because of recollection. They heard samjhe. The
That's
bhije
one.
or
That's
the
one important.
bhige.
That's one important thing about the words. Is what their
Mhm.
reference is. So your
Yeah.
samjhe would occur more often in conversation as opposed to
Then
samjhawe. So
samjhawe. Yes.
you would more understand or it in the context of samjhe.
Hmm. Yeah, this is great. So we have fresh words for this coming week, um, and this is going quite well. I have to say that the feedback has been super positive. What I enjoy most is the interaction. So I would see people commenting on other comments, and this is good exposure because for many, yes, the words are quite familiar. If you converse in Bhojpuri, then obviously this is easy peasy. But for some of us, we're hearing words for the first time, we are sounding out words for the first time, or we're making a connection to a word that sounds like this word. Also, we realize now that we have words for just about everything in Trinidad Bhojpuri because the Bunbunawi, like I would not think that there's a word that would describe that whole scenario if you just walk off and you're grumbling or you're mumbling or you're saying something, or Barbarawi as you mentioned before. So it's good exposure for everybody. And I think this is doing much better than I expected it to be. So we're looking forward to what's coming up next week. By the way, if you want to keep up with the words, you can visit my Facebook page. Just search Karen KD Das, or you can catch up with Dr. Bhimull on Caribbean Hindustani on Facebook as well.